I'm Krista Lewis, and sometimes I'm Pippa Jane, and you're listening to The Featured Voice with Jacques, an audio flow podcast series, because these voices deserve to be heard.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of The Featured Voice, Season 2. I'm your host, Jacques, and I hope that you guys are enjoying all of the episodes so far. This week, man, I am just so happy that I am having a chance to chat with this guy. Oddly, I met him because he is good friends with another narrator that I had a chance to meet this year at the Audies. And I just saw him on Facebook posting everywhere. And so since we have all these mutual friends, I figured, why the heck not send him a friend request? Or did he friend request me? I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm glad that it happened. I love his post. I love his energy. And I'm hoping that we'll get some of that in today's episode. So he's got a great background. And you guys, we're going to have some fun chatting with him today. So please help me welcome today's featured voice guest, Paul Heitsch. Good morning, Paul. Welcome to the featured voice. How are you?
I'm great, Jacques. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So we are already in the month of October, and I always like to ask people two questions, and this will determine if you and I will remain friends throughout the rest of this episode. Okay, are you ready?
Oh, dear. Yeah, this is a lot of pressure. I wasn't prepared for this at all. Go ahead.
All right. It's October. And so do you consider Halloween as just a day, or do you consider it as a holiday?
Well, I don't get it off of work, but yeah, there's definitely it's an event, and there's definitely activities that I participate in. We always make sure to have lots of candy, and I have dressed up for Halloween, like within the past few years. I should send you a picture of one of my costumes. I don't know like what a definite answer to that is. It's definitely a day that's marked on my calendar.
It's
Whether
on
it's
your calendar. Yeah. It's on everybody's printed calendar. So, oh, there's the dogs.
Howdy.
Hey, everybody. I have a dog. Actually, I have 3, and Dallas decides he wants to bark. So, welcome him to the show, everybody.
Hey, Dallas.
Okay, so here's the thing. When you're giving out the candy, are you dressed up, or are you just Paul at the door with the bucket of candy?
Lately, I have been just Paul.
Oh, bummer. Okay.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally all for that because I have my moments when I do Halloween, and sometimes I don't. I don't even give out candy all the time because the kids don't come here. So, okay.
Yeah.
So you're okay with that. All right. Second question. This is the one that makes the determining factor.
Okay.
Starbucks every year has the pumpkin spice latte, and everybody goes crazy all about pumpkin spice everything. Pumpkin, everything you can think of. Are you team pumpkin or team I hate pumpkin?
Well, I don't hate pumpkin. I'm more a pumpkin agnostic.
Don't use big words for us that don't know what that means. No.
I recognize there's a possibility that pumpkin-flavored beverages exist, but I'm keeping my options open on whether I believe in them or not.
But not just the beverage. Have you had a pumpkin spice cookie or pumpkin bread?
Oh yeah. I actually do like pumpkin cookies, and I make a mean pumpkin bread. So
see, okay, we're friends.
Yeah.
Fist bump. I'm giving you a virtual fist bump right now because you can. Yeah.
If you look in your chat, I sent you my costume from a few years ago.
Oh my gosh. Okay, everybody. I'm looking at the picture. Wait, it's downloading. I wonder. Oh, it's downloading, everybody, because I want to tell them what I'm looking at. You've got 3 legs.
Yep.
And what were you dressed? What are you supposed to be?
I'm a 3-legged man.
That's very original.
Thank you.
He's the three-legged man and wearing like a rain type trench coat. So I
That's
wish I
a
could.
that's a London fog trench coat.
I had one of those in black. London fog is used
Mm-hmm.
to. Well, they're still popular, I guess, if you wear raincoats. But yeah, that's really original, Paul. Go you with the three-legged man thing. Okay. All right. Well, Paul, I am happy to have you on the show, and I have kind of been, following you around a little bit. I don't even remember how we got in touch with each other. I don't know. Facebook is a wonder. It helps you connect with people, and it's been such good fun watching you and seeing your posts and things like that, and kind of following what you've been doing in your career. But we always like to know about the journey and how a person entered into the world of audiobooks. So for you, what's your background and what kind of pushed you toward this direction of becoming a narrator?
Well, that's a great story. Facebook is wonderful. And sometimes it prompts you like, this is what you posted 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And 6 years ago, September, it was like the first week of September. 6 years ago, I posted about how I had just scored my first gig as an audiobook narrator.
Oh, wow. Well, happy anniversary.
I had never done any voiceover work before. I had done some acting in high school, but I'm a musician. My whole adult life, I've done music and sound design. And I've worked with a lot of really good voiceovers, and I've directed and produced voiceover recordings. But my only time behind the mic was when I was working at game companies, and we didn't have time to bring a talent in to speak like a few lines of dialogue or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I would just run into the booth and record something. But that was it. I've been through a bunch of job search cycles where I work someplace and they downsize, and then I have to, look for work again. And I have search bots set up to look for the keyword audio. Mm-hmm. And so that's what was going on. And I got a hit for a job as an audiobook production manager for some place called ACX that I'd never heard of.
Oh, ACX.
Yeah. And I looked at the job description and it lined up with my resume really well. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, these guys, I'm going to apply for this right now. And these guys are going to call me within a few days for an interview because I'm just the perfect guy for this job. So when something like that happens, like I said, I've been through these cycles a few times. And so one of the things I learned is you got to get smart about the company. If you think you're going to get interviewed or you are going to get interviewed, or even before that, you research the company, you get names, you get a history of the company, you look through their news releases or whatever. So I just started going all over their website and basically trying to learn as much as I could. And so during that process, I filled out a profile. I created an account and filled out a profile. And I'm not an author, so I didn't do that, but I had done voice work and I had my own recording studio. So I checked, yes, I'm a narrator and I'm a recording engineer and I'm this. So I submit the profile. So I get a pop-up window that says, oh, we see you're a narrator. Would you like to search for interesting titles to audition for? And it's all research at this point. I'm just doing homework. So I think, sure, let's see what that's like. So I go through their listing of books and I picked 3 that looked like they were interesting enough. Just like the first 3 I found that didn't, that I thought would be okay. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I had my own setup. So I recorded 3 auditions and sent those off. And then I just waited for the phone to ring. Well, the phone never rang. They weren't, and we would have had to move to New Jersey anyway, from Virginia. But 3 days later, Crossroad Press got back to me and said, we'd like you to narrate this book that you auditioned for. And thanks again to David Niall Wilson and Jeff Kafer, who was the guy that told David, you should hire this guy for the book. So yeah, I recorded the book. It took me months. It was almost a 10-hour book. And I'd never done anything like that as far as long form recording and editing. and I didn't have any kind of workflow. I was fixing mouth clicks by using a pencil tool and Pro Tools, like literally redrawing the waveform to get rid of the clicks.
Oh, wow.
I didn't have any breath control, so I was like almost every pause between sentences, I was replacing my breath with room tone because it was terrible. But I got it done. The book was released in December of that year, and I learned, one, how much work it is to record an audiobook,
Mm-hmm.
and that I just loved doing the work. I had such a blast doing this, and I was doing it in between, other things. I was picking up, other freelance work, and I was still looking for full time. But yeah, that was my first book. That was how I got into audiobooks. And, now I've got, I think, 91 books listed, and I've got a few more in the queue. And this is what I do for most of my living, is record audiobooks.
Well, that's a great story, especially how you kind of stumbled upon ACX.
Oh, I totally stumbled.
You stumbled and fell face first and thought that one position that you were the perfect guy for, you ended up being the perfect guy to tell somebody's story. So
yeah,
who knew, right?
yeah.
And 6 years later, you're still at it and loving it. So
yeah.
Everything happens for a reason. I totally see that.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned that you had done some acting, and you said it was in high school. So nothing after high school, no theater, no anything like that. You just went on based off of the skills that you used in high school to narrate that book, or what did you tap into?
I ask myself that a lot. I can't put my finger on exactly what it is I'm tapping into. Like I said, I'm a musician, and so I have a good ear for pretty much anything. So I can remember. I have a good oral memory of how people talk.
Mm-hmm.
I also worked a lot in theater as a piano player. I played for musical theater, and I also played for improv comedy groups. So I've had a chance to observe firsthand a lot of acting, a lot of people doing acting, and not just performing, but the whole business of rehearsing and developing and refining a performance. So I think all of that is in the bucket that I'm pulling from to inform how I narrate these books.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, I don't know. I've got a good sense of timing. I've got a good sense of cadence and melody. There's a melody to every book. So I just seem to have a good sense of that stuff.
That stuff. You're a
Yeah.
natural. Let's just go with that and say, hey, Paul's a natural.
I like that. I like that.
Okay, that's what we're going with.
Okay, you can just edit out the whole thing
No,
that I just.
we're keeping all of that in
Okay.
there. I just interpreted what you said.
Okay.
You didn't want to puff yourself up and say, hey, I'm a natural. So it was my job, as my voice goes out, gosh, it's my job to tell you that you're a natural. So
Yeah. Oh, you were asking about things for dry throats?
yes, but it wasn't for me.
Oh, okay.
But it should be. You hear how I sound? I sound awful.
I found this stuff called Throat Saver.
Throat saver.
And yeah, and it's this guy in California. That's who I was trying to figure out who's in Toluca Lake. And it's that guy. And I've got his card here somewhere and I can't find it, but yeah, he's got I'll email you that as soon as I find out where this guy is from.
Thank you so much.
He basically specializes in products like this, products for voiceover talent. That for singers and for voiceovers. This stuff is just a spray that I shoot at the back of my throat and hold close to mouth. So.
Yeah, just hold it close to your mouth and squirt it to the back of your throat, everybody.
Yeah,
That's Paul's recommendation.
And also be careful that you don't accidentally reach for the spray bottle that you use to clean your glasses.
Oh, gosh.
Which I've done. So.
That's awful. How long did it
Yeah,
take you to recover to realize that you just coated your throat with glass cleaner?
it was like 5 minutes. I just stopped and went and gargled with regular tap water for a while, and
How was your throat after
it was
that?
okay. It was okay.
Yeah, everybody make sure you grab the right bottle because we don't want to cause any injuries to the throat area or anything like that. So, um but so Paul, you've got about 91 titles in your library. Um should be closer to 100 by the end of the year, you think?
Oh yeah, I would hope so.
Okay. Well, when you celebrate 100, we'll have to do something a little special for you.
Okay,
So, you have until December 31st
all right.
to and I will say it just needs to be finished because sometimes I know sometimes it takes a little bit longer for some books than others to pass through quality check and all that good stuff. So, but we'll be ready. We'll be ready to celebrate with you.
All right, something to
Uh,
look forward to.
yes. So you started in this industry about 6 years ago. And
Hmm.
so do you have a book that you think was the most challenging to you? And it's not just so much of, the accents or dialect or anything like that, but just the story content in itself that really challenged you and pushed you further than you thought that you could go.
Well, that's a good question. I'm looking at some of mine. There was one I did that's a collection of short stories
Hmm.
called Evil Grows, and they're all these noirish short stories. And I'm a big fan of noir, but usually in a novel, well, always in a novel, there's one cast of characters, and the arc develops, and there's a beginning and a middle and an end, and you've got
Hmm.
all this time to sort of let the listener know who these people are and maybe reveal layers of them as you go along. In short stories, it's very, very condensed. And you have to get right into who these people are, and you have to get right into the story. And I know writers who've said that short stories are the most challenging format to write in, and for that reason. And for me, it was
Hmm.
the same thing as a narrator. There were, I think, 9 or 10 stories in this collection, and every one of them had a different cast of characters, and every one of them were set in different places and different situations, and so being able to shift from story to story and from cast to cast and from setting to setting was really, I mean, it took a lot of agility, and it took a lot of ability to shift my focus and get right into whatever this next story was. So I'm really proud of that work. um, and I've done some young adult books, and those are challenging because I have to try to remember what it was like a long time ago when I was a young adult. And not only that, but to try to keep my vocal register
Hmm.
tuned to that age. There's a whole different level of energy and pacing and tone that you need for a young adult book. It's a lot of work for me to sustain that over the course of a whole book.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, especially because your voice is already a little bit low.
Yeah,
And, YA, even though, it's probably a little outside of puberty, but they still, you've got to still sound like you're what, 17 or 18.
yeah,
And
yeah. Or
you're not 18, Paul, I don't
nope,
think. Huh?
nope, 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 nope.
I love it. And so when you have those thoughts of, trying to remember back what it was like to be that age when you are narrating those YA books, do you ever sit there and think about the character and say, "Man, I would have never done that," or do you
Oh,
have those characters that say, "Yeah, I did that too"?
yes to both.
Okay.
That first aspect of, why are you doing this? This is such a bad choice. No one would ever do that. Can't you see what the consequences are? I I run into that in practically every book I narrate. And I think it's necessary in order to sustain whatever conflict the story is based on. That if people made good choices right away, you'd be done by page 30, So yeah, you have to have your characters maybe, falling for the wrong person, or, getting the wrong impression about why so-and-so said this or did that. So yeah, I recognize myself in a lot of the characters in YA and in the all the books that the fiction books that I narrate. There are also plenty of times when I think, oh, come on.
We think that too
Please,
sometimes.
Please.
It's like, really?
Yes. Yeah.
Now,
TSTL.
I don't know what that is.
Too stupid to live.
Oh, see, why do you know that and I don't?
I don't know. I'm hip.
By the way, nobody says I'm hip. You're now unhip for saying you're hip.
All right.
You lost your cool point.
What do they say so that I can?
I don't know, Paul. I'm 40.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea what people say.
Oh, please.
I still say that's cool.
Yeah. Well, it is. That's absolutely fine. My daughter, who was like 18 or 19 at the time, called me out for using dope. I said, "No, that's dope." And I got the eye roll, and I got the patient sigh, and then she says, "Dad, no one says dope anymore." So I found a YouTube video of Will I Am saying dope like repeatedly. I bet her $1. No, I will bet you that people still use this. And I found that YouTube video and I sent it to her. So she paid me my $1.
Well, of course he can say that because he's Will I Am. But, if we use it, we're old. Like, that was so 90s or 80s or whatever year it was when people were saying that. I don't know. But,
and see, if she had specified that, she might have had a chance of winning the bet. But she didn't. She said, "People don't say that, Dad." Oh, yeah?
So you found an old video? You cheated.
No, it wasn't old. It was like from the last year, within the last year.
Oh, okay. Well, everything is recycled. Everything that was old is new, and it's just a new cycle and a new group of people doing the same thing that's already been done and calling it new. So
that is so true. The oh snap.
Yeah.
That's like over a century old. My wife's aunt sent us a bunch of these books from like the turn of the century about these 4 boys that have a hunt club in Connecticut, and they go out into the woods, and they're like, in high school, they go out camping in the woods during the winter and they just shoot at anything that moves, and they have these adventures. And yeah, like I said, they're written around 1905 or 1910, and they're talking about something and they say, "Oh, snap." I'm like, okay. People think that's a new thing. That's been around. There's nobody alive who, now who was born when they first started saying, "Oh, snap."
Yeah. So that's why they can say it's new, because none of us would know.
Yeah.
None of us would know. We're totally clueless on that. But thanks for outing everybody, Paul.
There you go.
Yeah, that's how that works.
My work is done here.
Your work is done here. So let's talk a little bit about what it is that you enjoy most working in this profession. And then, of course, I have to ask the wardrobe question, because I asked everybody this question. But I'll ask you that after. So what is it that you have really enjoyed about working in this part of the industry? And what are some things that you have noticed have changed since you started?
I love the work itself. And I love that I'm in charge of everything. I work from my home studio. So I'm the engineer, I'm the director. I really like being the director. And I cast the characters. I decide, okay, this is this person, this is this person. this is how they sound. This is how they're going to be performed. And I love being everybody. I love, I'm the narrator, I'm the hero, I'm the heroine, I'm the comic sidekick. I'm everybody. I get to do all of it. So I don't get typecast as, this supporting role or whatever. I get to be everything. So yeah, there's the performance part of it where it's just it's so rich with opportunities to just do all this different stuff. And I love the autonomy. I love being in charge of, how I go about the work, when I go about the work. I'm totally in charge of my own schedule, more or less. I have a couple of part-time jobs at the university here in town. So in the fall and the spring semesters, I'm shoehorning those obligations in around the narrating. As far as what has changed, I don't know that stuff has changed. There's some things that were going on when I started have become more prevalent. There are a lot more people working from home studios, and there are some problems inherent with people working from home studios who maybe aren't set up to achieve, what you would consider a polished retail ready sound. People are coming to this from all kinds of backgrounds, and there are very few of them who are coming from an engineering background, which I think was a big advantage that I had when I started out. Like I said, I'd worked as a composer and a sound designer, and I had worked in recording studios, and I had actually designed and built and run recording studios. So I had that set of skills in my bag when I started out. There are more turnkey solution companies starting up. There's there's Listen to a Book, which Stephen J. Cohen operates, and they do a lot of public domain stuff. But he's looking at getting into more full cast audio productions. He's a great guy, and I would love to work for him one of these days.
There's a plug there.
There's Authors Republic, and then there's Findaway, that are all they're sort of looking at the ACX model and seeing if they can't either come up with something similar or even do a little better. So and there are a lot more indie authors who are looking at getting into audiobooks. So there's been a lot of growth. More and more of the publishing of the total publishing output now is audiobooks, and audiobooks is growing faster than any other part of the publishing industry.
Yeah.
Like I said, there were things that were going on at the time, and some of them have just got more mass and momentum behind them now than they had then.
Yeah, and so you mentioned that you are a musician, and so are you still composing or using that creative talent when you're not working on the audiobooks? And how does that play into, I guess, kind of your overall career?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I do play piano. One of the two part-time jobs that I have at James Madison University is I accompany dance classes for their dance program. And that's all improvised. And as far as how that feeds into my narration, I think what it does is it works that muscle that is like in the moment and aware of what's going on and figuring out. Like when I'm playing for dance classes, I have to watch what the dancers are doing and come up with something that supports the kinetics and the feel, the nature of the movement. And it's kind of the same thing, but through a different instrument for audiobooks. I read the book first, so I know the story and I know the characters, and I don't get to the end of the book and realize somebody's got a speech impediment or some accent or something.
Because that would suck. You'd have to do that all over.
Yeah, exactly. But as I'm reading, I'm kind of always in that moment and sort of improvising the performance of the text. I don't have the book memorized, basically, so I'm still performing kind of extemporaneously as I'm reading. And that ability to just be in the moment is, I think, developed by both of those kinds of work. Also, yeah, my musical ability to absorb and retain the sound of things has really helped me to come up with character voices really quickly, because a lot of them are based on either people I know personally, or characters that I see a lot on television or in the movies, or whatever, or just actors, or um, whatever, people whose speech patterns and whose personalities and way of carrying themselves are familiar to me, and I can tap into that memory to flesh out the characters I'm performing.
Okay, so you were telling me some things that you enjoyed, and I saw a theme there. And so you said, I like that I can be all of these people and I'm in control and I'm the director. So
Hmm.
so yeah, I noticed that Paul likes to be in control. And so I always find it interesting that when you receive a book project, that you get a little bit of information, I'm assuming, from either the rights holder or the author, if it's going kind of independent, about what that character sounds like. Or if you're reading the book, and some books don't really tell you that the person has what kind of voice they have. So when you have creative control over those characters, what you mentioned that sometimes you think about people that is there ever a time when you've started with the character and you've given them a voice and you're like, I don't really like that one? And do you go back and change it, or do you just kind of go with it? Or is it more of a feeling? This character feels like they sound like this, and that's kind of how it works for you.
I have never second guessed a character choice for a book.
Mm-hmm.
I do it on auditions. I do it all the time. I did a dual narration audition. Didn't get the book, but I recorded my half of the audition script, and then I got the woman's half of her audition script,
Mm-hmm.
and my character appeared in her scene. And I liked the way she played the male character better than my own. So I re-recorded my audition so it matched up with her interpretation of his character. Um, for auditions, you've got this tiny, tiny window into the overall book. It's maybe 5 minutes out of a 7 or 8 or 9 hour book. So there's really limited information to extrapolate a whole character from.
Mm-hmm.
When I've got the whole book and I have read the whole story, and by the end of the book, I recognize these people. I know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly if the writing's good. There's some stuff that's sort of formulaic and the characters are, stock characters. And those are easy to perform. They're not the most fun to perform, but they're easy. There's a way that a typical alpha male type character talks and responds to things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, by the end of the whole book, these people are recognizable to me, and I'm usually really confident that I know how to perform them.
We're confident that you know how to perform them as well, and that's why we keep buying
Oh,
those books. So
well,
there, do
thank
you
you.
hear the violins? I'm like pouring
I
it on for
did.
you.
I did. Thank you so much.
um, so let's talk about dialects, because this is always something that not only do listeners like to know about the narrators that we follow and listen to, but also authors like to know, what you're proficient in. And so I always like to know that. So dialects, first of all, I realize that sometimes authors will write books and they will give a character an accent or something just because they think it's sexy, or
Yeah.
and so as I get more into this part of the industry, I realize that perhaps they should not use certain dialects. Not saying that it can't be done, but man, it's mad hard, that
Yeah.
from what I understand. And so I've heard that Scottish is difficult, and somebody mentioned something about Cajun, and so
Oh yeah,
yeah,
Cajun stuff.
and so in my head, I'm just like, why would somebody put that in a book? This person's random. They live in Tennessee and they have a Cajun accent. But okay. So with that in mind, do you have any accents or dialects that you believe that you're proficient in? And then on the other hand, are there some that, if you see it in a script or an audition piece, you're kind of like, well, I might need to stay away from that one, or I need to, tap into my resources of YouTube or what have you before I submit an audition?
Yeah, if there's a prominent character who has an accent, I will have samples of the accent always up for me to refer to whenever they have dialogue coming along.
Mm-hmm.
I can do a pretty good Russian. I worked with PJ Oakland when I had a book that featured prominent Scots and Irish characters. And so that helped a whole lot. He gave me some, basic things that would differentiate the accents. And my Aussie is pretty good. I watched, I binge watched Rake on Netflix. So having that fresh in your mind is always helpful. What I have trouble with a lot of the time are various UK dialects. I can do a decent Cockney, but my Cockney sometimes starts to migrate towards Australian, and I have to catch it and walk it back. And the long O sound for British accents, it's got like 16 different vowel sounds in it before they get to the end. It's like no, and being able to just rip that one off authentically and as part of a natural conversation, it drives me batty. So I also try to be careful not to overcook the accents, to try to err more on the side of suggesting them. Some of them are so fun, like Russian is so much fun to do, but you have to be careful not to sound like Boris and Natasha.
I was going to say that. That's because in my mind, that's what Russian always sounds like. I'm watching Rocky and Bullwinkle.
You got to be careful with that. I had one book where there was a prominent character who was from Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe. And Rhodesian is like South African, but it's a little bit different. And so just finding examples online of people that have Rhodesian accents was a challenge. And then every time this guy had a line of dialogue, I would have the sample that I'd found. Like I said, I had a QuickTime of it just sitting on my desktop, and I would play it over and over and over again. And then I'd record one line of his dialogue. And then I'd play the sample again 2 or 3 times. And then I'd record the next line of his dialogue. I mean, it took me forever to get this guy's dialogue right. And I feel like I did a decent job, but that is one that I'm never, ever going to really have just right in my bag that I feel like I can just, pull up.
And what author is really just going to put somebody in their book? I mean, how many books are you going to find with somebody who has a Rhodesian accent?
Just one so far.
Right. So I'm not seeing that as being something that's, very popular unless it's, nonfiction, maybe.
Yeah.
So lucky for you.
Yeah.
Back to the Russian, it seems interesting that more people are building characters who have Russian accents. And I'm not even sure if there's a specific genre where more Russian is coming into play. But like you mentioned, the first thing I think about is Boris and Natasha. I mean, other than that, I don't know how a Russian person really sounds. I mean, I do watch The Americans. So, but I'm American. I've never been to Russia. So I don't know.
There's the L sound, which is way back in the throat.
Yeah.
It's L. And the V's become W's. Like David, you're the second Patsy. and that flat A sound, it's piazzi. So, but again, you have to be careful not to overcook it. Just
Yeah.
just touch it.
If you overcook it, I won't know. I'll be like, that sounds great to me, and then some Russian person will be like, oh no, they didn't do that right. But really, again, Paul, I'm American and I've not traveled the world, so there's no way that I would know the difference. I just, so that's why we have you guys who, you do all that research to make sure it's as close to what it should sound like for us, because really we just want to know what the person is saying, and we want to say, man, they really nailed that accent. Not that we have anything to compare it to. That's just what we say. They nailed that accent. What is it about the Scottish accent that comes across as being one of the difficult ones? And I'm wondering why. Well, I know why. Authors write Irish and Scottish accents because we think they're sexy. And so unfortunately you guys have to bring it. So what is it about the Scottish accent that's that can be difficult?
I don't know, Jack. It's got a really specific kind of rhythm to our ears. And I don't know, just the vowel sounds are it's the same language, but the way they shape vowels is very different. The short I sound becomes we're in it now,
Are you making faces while is your mouth doing something different to make those
no
sounds?
lass, it's just the same me.
I don't believe you.
they've got a little bit of that L sound too. No lass. It sort of goes towards the back of the throat. And as far as the difference between Scots and Irish, there were points where I had a conversation between an Irish guy and a Scots guy. And the way that I was able to flip back and forth was the R's and the T's. The Scottish guy rolls his R's and drops his T's. So it's we're in it now. And the Irish guy has what are called rhotic R's, R, and hits his T's. We're in it now, or we're in it now. So people expect an Irishman to have more of a sing-songy sort of cadence to his voice. So that was like my pole star, for just making sure that, okay, this guy's Irish and this guy's Scottish.
Gosh, and you had to be in a conversation
with
both. I mean, you just earned a gold star for that, because I would be so confused. This one is sing-songy and this one's got the back of the throat thing going, and oh wait, no, that person is talking. No, it's this.
Rolls his Irish.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I want that book now so that I can hear how it sounds when you had to do.
It's a shifter romance. I did with my pseudonym. I'll send you the link.
Oh, okay, yeah, we'll do that. Sorry, guys, I can't share that information with you, but I'll just come back and I'll tell you how good it was. So we do have a sample because you've been working pretty hard this year, and so we have a sample that you provided us for a book for Past Obsession. So you want to give us a little info about that one?
Okay. That one is by Richard Keith Taylor. He's an author that I started working with this year. It's my third book for him. And he, every book of his is different, and he mashes up all these different genres. And he's just, I love reading his writing because he's such a good writer, and his characters are complex, and he puts these believable characters into these really, crazy situations. So Past Obsession is about this guy, Jim Mercer, who's a freelance writer, and he gets hired to do a feature piece on an artist, Emily Emily Lawrence, whose work is going to be in a show at the Getty Museum in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And Mercer is hired to do a write-up about the show and about the artist. And the artist was, she never was famous in her own lifetime, which was very short because she was murdered when she was in her 20s, quite brutally. And that was in 1942, I think, or 1943. So it was 70 some years ago. And so Mercer, first of all, he sees her artwork, and he's really just struck by something about her art that speaks to him and sort of reveals things about what kind of person she must have been. And one of them's a self-portrait too, and he's really struck by how she's not conventionally just beautiful, but she is beautiful. He's just attracted to her. And then he starts learning about her murder, and then about her life, and in the course of researching her, part of the PR. This is a long explanation. Part of the PR materials from the museum.
Just tell us what happens at the
was
end,
a DVD.
Paul. No,
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
So anyway, there's a DVD of a documentary that was done about her that includes footage from this home movie that was found in her home where she died. And in the home movie, he sees her, alive and on the beach and on the boardwalk in Santa Monica. And he starts falling in love with her. He starts becoming obsessed with her, and he realizes it's sick. Well, or just it's crazy. She's been dead for over 70 years. This is just it's this sort of necrophilic obsession that he has with her. So then he sees there's footage of her in her home that's being shot by a guy who is we learn obviously her lover, and he noticed he's watching it over and over again, and suddenly he realizes that as the camera is following her as she walks across the room, there's a brief moment where it sees a mirror. And in the mirror, he sees the cameraman, and he recognizes himself.
Yes.
That he's the guy taking the movie. So at that point, he thinks, geez, I must have traveled back in time. So, okay, from that, I can infer that time travel is possible and that I do it. So I need to find out how the heck do I, connect with the people that have this time travel technology and get them to send me back in time, because if they do, I can save her from being murdered. And that's the main thrust of the book, that this guy becomes obsessed with a dead artist, and then he realizes that he's obsessed with her because he really does fall in love with her, and he goes back in time to save her.
Well, there you go, everybody. That's Past Obsession, but we're going to take a listen to Paul's sample and see how he kind of brings that into the light. You ready, Paul?
Yeah, hit it.
All right, here we go.
I don't know how much time had passed. It was dark out. I had just exchanged the Getty disc for the other. I wasn't really looking at the TV. Instead, I surveyed my emotions as Emily unbuttoned her dress. They were real. My emotions were real. It wasn't crazy, really. People did fall in love at first sight. It happened. Except here, it was love at first sight over a distance of 75 years. I would have to get over her if I could. But could I? Then I saw it. Why I didn't see it before, I don't know. It was brief, no more than a half-dozen frames of film at most. Still, it was there, in plain sight, not hidden. I'd been looking at Emily, and I suspected Riley had done the same, and the police investigators of 75 years in the past. They, too, had looked at the beautiful naked girl, and not at the mirror. The mirror, where the reflection of her lover could be seen for an instant, for several evanescent frames of film, before the angle carried the image elsewhere into the room. I freeze-framed the video, backed it up, pressed play, and freeze-framed it again. Emily's lover, reflected in the mirror, wasn't staring through the viewfinder of the camera. He was leaning around the camera, looking at her walk toward the bedroom door. I recognized the face immediately. It was my own.
I love that. I love that sample because it gives you just enough. It's like a teaser. It's a sample teaser. And it's like, okay, then what? And so now we just wait for the rest of the story. And you know what's it was interesting, you were like Emily Lawrence, and I'm like, she's a narrator. And then I was like, oh no, that's the character's name in the story.
Yeah.
So when can we expect this book, Paul? Is it out?
It's out. Yeah,
Okay.
it's out.
It is out. Everybody, be sure that you go by and scoop up that book if you want to find out what's going on next in the story, if the guy actually is able to time travel and save her. And do you ever are you big into sci-fi, Paul? Are you like a believer in believe you can, past lives or time travel and
Well, yeah, past lives isn't so much science, but although this same author, Richard, the first one I did for him is about past lives and how this venture capitalist funds research on a drug that's supposed to help you with short-term memory, but if you OD on it, then you start remembering past lives. But yeah, I love science fiction. The whole traveling through time or traveling faster than light stuff. I don't know if that's ever going to be possible. There are just physical boundaries that we haven't figured out how we're ever going to generate enough energy to break through. But yeah, just I love how they imagine what the future might look like, or what the present might look like if this had happened differently, or if we had discovered this, or the stuff with aliens can be interesting if the aliens are fleshed out, if they have a whole history and a whole culture of their own. And there are some writers that are really, really good about that. The space opera stuff can be fun, and I've done a bunch of those for Audible Studios. The Omega Force series, I love that series, and I love Joshua. He is such a good writer. But what I really like about that series is that he develops the characters over the arc of 9 books. I mean, he introduces them in the first book, and then as the series goes on, we just learn more and more about them, and their relationships to each other develop and become more nuanced. So that's really fun for me, and it's fun for the listeners too.
Yeah.
It's Emily Torrance. Sorry.
Torrance, not
yeah.
So you gave me the
I miss Emily Torrance. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
Because I know Emily Lawrence too.
Yeah. That means we should call. I need to get her on the show. That was Freudian slip. I need to catch up with her. But
yeah.
In your spare time, Paul, if you have spare time, since I see that you kind of like these type of books, work wise, leisurely, are you listening to audiobooks? Are you reading books? And if so, what's your go-to relaxed time genre?
I listen to audiobooks. I walk to work and back. And when I'm doing chores like washing the dishes or mowing the lawn or whatever, I multitask by listening to audiobooks. I don't have a lot of discretionary time to just read for entertainment. If I have time to read, then I prep whatever book I'm supposed to be working on. But yeah, I like it's all over the map. I listened to the whole Century trilogy by Ken Follett. His books are just amazing, and John Lee is just such a terrific narrator. Right now, I'm listening to here. Let me pull it up. It's the Dream Blood series.
Dream Blood.
Yeah, I tend to go for either historical nonfiction or historical fiction or science fiction fantasy.
Hmm.
It's by the Dreamblood series. It's by N.K. Jemisin, and it's narrated by Sarah Zimmerman, who does a terrific job.
Okay.
Um, and Neil Gaiman is always a good bet. Um, uh, let's just take a look at my library here.
So, well, how many books do you have in your
Oh,
library?
a couple of hundred at least.
Well,
Um,
that's not too bad.
yeah, I'm listening to the Bobaverse books by Dennis Taylor, and Ray Porter narrates those. And man, I listen to his stuff and I just want to be Ray Porter. He's so good.
Maybe you were him in a past life.
Uh,
Or no.
and
Well, he would have to not be here for it to be a past life, so maybe not. But
yeah.
you can keep your fingers crossed that maybe you'll come back as a version of him. I don't know. but you're Mr. Natural, so
That's
you
right.
just
That's
need to
right.
be you, Mr.
Yeah,
Natural.
yeah. You know what?
So
I should get a Mr. Natural drawing by R. Crumb and use that as my logo.
you should do it. Do it and say, Jacques and I came up with this while I was on her show, and I was giving this long, elaborate answer, and she just came back and said, you should just call yourself you're just Mr. Natural. So
Yeah,
everybody's got to have a hashtag. So there
that's
you
right.
go.
That's
There
right.
you go. So Paul, you've done all of these different type of genres, either under your name or your pseudonym. And so, are there any books or genres or tropes that you have yet to mark off of your bucket list that you're looking at possibly doing in the next, soon in the next few months?
Well, I would love to do more contemporary fiction, and I've never done a contemporary romance.
Hmm. What?
That's
Really?
yeah. They've
That's
all been
shocking.
some kind of paranormal romance, like
Hmm.
Shifter or witchcraft or
Something.
that
Hmm.
or military romance.
Hmm.
And I don't think I'm right for military romance. I don't have the meathead beefcake macho guy in my bag. At least not that I can sustain over an entire book and make him, sympathetic and attractive.
Likeable.
Yeah, likable. Yeah. Um, yeah. So I've done a few of those, and those are the ones that I consistently get knocked for in reviews. So I think I'm not going to pursue military romance, but man, I would so love to do contemporary romance and just contemporary fiction. I have not had an opportunity to do too many contemporary fictions. It's been a lot of science fiction and some mystery, which is fun, and thrillers, which are fun. And I'm getting cast for a lot of nonfiction. Um,
Mm.
Blackstone and Audible Studios and Tantor have been hiring me to do nonfiction. And that kind of surprised me at first, but I've had casting people tell me, like I did the speed dating thing at APAC,
Hmm.
and a lot of the casting people that I talked to there said, "Oh yeah, you've got a great voice for nonfiction." So fine, I love nonfiction. I always learn something that I would not have known without reading this book. And yeah, if it's something that people like hearing me do, then I'll keep doing it. So
Well, our goal is to now get you in front of authors who have contemporary romance, because that's the purpose of the featured voice, is to introduce you to those authors who have yet stepped out there
oh
and can notice that there's a fresh voice, and it could be a new thing for you and the author. So
hmm
that's my goal, is to get you a contemporary romance, and I don't know how long it's going to take me, but that's my goal now. So
all right.
I have a goal now, is to reach out to some people and say, I've got this guy, he's a natural, and
Thank
his name is Paul, and you need to get on board with him.
All
So
right.
yes, that's
Well,
the goal
thank you.
here.
All
Well,
right.
you're
I
welcome.
thought we were just hanging out.
Well, we are just hanging out, but I'm all about supporting. I like to support my people, and so you're part of my people. So, um, but anyway, so that's the featured voice. That's what we're here for. And Paul, you mentioned that you went to APAC last year.
Yeah.
So, are you looking to do more events, to attend more events, maybe next year?
Oh yeah. I always go to APAC.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna make sure that I get to the clam bake in Maine, which is a few weeks after APAC. It's in
Ooh,
July.
nice.
Yeah. And there's an indie author event in April. That's where I'd like to concentrate more of my effort, is to just uh, approach authors directly
Mm-hmm.
at the places that they are going to,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe organize panels for to talk about audiobooks, to raise people's awareness of audiobooks, and answer whatever burning questions they have about how do I get an audiobook made, how do I
Mm-hmm.
cast my audiobook, how do I
Mm-hmm.
market my audiobook, that kind of stuff.
Right.
um, I think for any authors who are not in audio, it's a big missed opportunity, because
Mm-hmm.
looping back to the beginning of the conversation, it's the fastest growing sector of publishing right now. And it accounts for more and more of the publishing pie every year. And it can be a great source of additional revenue for any authors that want to get their toe in the water and start doing audiobooks.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think there are a lot of authors out there who do want to do that and do struggle with, well, how do I get started and what do I do? And even though the resources are out there, but if you don't really know where to look, then those resources are just sitting there. So,
Hmm.
with us being in the community, it's just really about making contact and building those relationships. And it's something that I try to do often, is direct people. This is where you should go. This is who you should chat with. This person's
Hmm.
got this information. I'm not scared to share it. I want you to be successful. So I like that about the community, about the audio and
Oh,
portion, and the
yeah.
books. What's
You
up?
you were asking me, like, what do you love about audiobooks? And
Yes.
I neglected to mention that it's the community. My
Yeah.
gosh, this is by far the most collegial, collaborative,
Hmm.
helpful community of people. Coming from a musical background, and working in theater, and just seeing how kind of competitive, and how much sort of political wrangling goes on in some of those arenas. The audiobook community, man, people just go out of their way to be
Yeah.
helpful to each other. Someone will have a book come along and they think, I'm not a good voice for this, but this guy over here, you should call them because they'd be great for it.
Right.
Andy Arndt, right?
Yes.
Yeah, she is great about that. She
Yeah.
she is she is just so plugged in, and so on the lookout for opportunities to just help everybody she can. Um, and I'm really blessed to call her a friend. We live in the same town. We go to the same church. And we knew each other before I got into audiobooks.
Hmm.
She and I worked together when I was at Rosetta Stone.
Hmm.
Um, it's such a great community to be a part of, and I'm so grateful that I found it. It's like this is my tribe now, and
Yes.
I just really, and it's so important too, because the work is very isolating. I mean,
Hmm.
that's just the nature of it. You lock yourself in this little room that's
Hmm.
dead quiet, and you have to just be focused on this one task and block everything out.
Right.
And there aren't a lot of people who do this work. So having that community of people where we all can talk shop and we've all shared the same experiences is I can't tell you how valuable that's been to me. So.
Yeah, and I got to witness that, a little piece of that myself, when I went to the APA this
Yeah.
year. And just even at the Audio Awards, everybody was just so excited for each nominee, for each person that won. It was nice to see that everybody was just excited to be there and
Yeah.
supportive of each other. And it's good when you can be in an industry or a community where there's not this dramatic overlay of
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's always fun. And you just reminded me about the booth wardrobe. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
so this is what I hear, is that most people don't wear pants in the booth.
Oh, I definitely wear pants.
Do you wear pants in the booth?
Yeah, the only times I have not worn pants was when I forgot to change out of my jeans. I typically I'm in sweatpants and sweatshirts or t-shirts, just something cottony and quiet that won't make any sound when I move around. But sometimes I will, get out of the booth, go somewhere, do something. I have to change into regular clothes. So I come back and I forget to change out of my regular clothes, and I start recording, and my blue jeans are they're making sounds, or my belt, my leather belt is going. Just I take in a breath, and so on those rare occasions, I have taken off my blue jeans and continued recording without them. But yeah, typically I'm wearing, and that's what I'm wearing now. I've got, cotton sweatpants and a cotton t-shirt and a cotton sweatshirt over that, because it's kind of chilly here in Virginia these days.
Oh, and so in your booth, do you have some type of climate control type thing in there?
I have it doesn't control the climate, but I have a ventilation system that moves air,
know what I meant. Yeah, I didn't mean climate like, global warming or anything in your booth. So yeah, I'm sorry.
Nothing that regulates the temperature. But I have a ventilation system that came with the booth. I bought a vocal booth, a 4x5. Anyone who's thinking about getting a pre-made booth, I would recommend them highly. They're a great company, and their product is first rate. But it comes with a ventilation system, and it exchanges all the air in the booth about every minute or minute and 10 seconds.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So I can be in here for hours and not have to worry about whether it's getting too stuffy. Yeah, and if it's cool in the house, then I don't have to worry about it getting too hot in the booth either. So.
Well, yeah, because you sound like you're layered up down there with the t-shirt and the sweatshirt on.
Yeah,
it's cold here in Indiana too. I realized back in the end of August, the beginning of September, I'm like, it's now fall, so it's not summer anymore. It's just time to be layered up with more clothes. So nothing you can do about that, right? Except embrace it.
Yep.
Embrace the cold.
Yep.
Okay. So thank you so much, Paul, for being here with us on The Featured Voice. Before we go, please tell all our listeners where they can find you, especially any authors who want to reach out to you. I usually ask people to tell us, all their social media links, but I found that it's easier if you have a website that people go there. I'm sure that they can find you. So where would you like to point everybody?
Point them at my website, which it's still.
Are you still working on it?
Yeah, the finishing touch is the about page, and I just am struggling with what the heck do I say about myself on the about page. And that Mr. Natural thing, I think, is going to play a prominent role in figuring that out. But it's just www.paulheitsch.com, and Heitsch is spelled Heitsch. It's a good German name.
Yes, make sure you wrote that down, because and
if they want to email me directly, it's just paul@paulheitsch.com.
Okay, perfect. Well, we will be following you and also following you on Audible so that we can see when upcoming releases are posted out that you've completed. Again, everybody, he's Mr. Natural. So when you hear him, I think I need a shirt that says "I heart Mr. Natural's voice." So I'm making this a thing now. It's now a thing.
Okay.
It's a thing, everybody.
I'm actually now looking up Mr. Natural on Google and clicking on images. And there he is.
Is there a picture of somebody called Mr. Natural?
Yeah, here. Hang on a second. Let me I can send you this too.
He's going to send me a picture.
Save image as. Hold it. Here, this is a better one.
Why can't we just use your face?
Well, you can, but Mr. Natural is actually a character, like a whole bunch of cartoon books.
Really?
By Art Crump.
So I didn't make that up like, oh, snap, huh?
No.
So how about when we put out little known facts or the fun fact, then we'll post a picture of Mr. Natural, and then we'll put a side by side of yours, and then we'll just say it's our version of Mr. Natural.
There you go.
So there we go.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, again, thank you so much for joining us for this week on the Featured Voice. Again, thank you to Paul for being here with us. Be sure that you are following us on Facebook at The Audio Flow, and also on Instagram at The Audio Flow, and also Twitter at _audio_flow. This episode can be downloaded through iTunes as well as Google Play, and is also streaming on iHeartRadio and TuneIn. And as always, you can find us on YouTube at Booking Around Town channel, where you can hear all of our episodes there as well. Big thanks to my producer Danielle at Firefly Productions, and also to my assistant Rebecca for helping me keep everything together. Paul, any final words from you?
Thank you, Jock. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for your support of this community and the industry. It's just, you are such a valuable, such a great person for doing this.
Yeah, I would have lost my train of thought too.
Yeah.
We've been talking for an hour. It's hard.
I was gonna say valuable asset, but that just doesn't really. There's just too many ways to not say that exactly right. So.
Well, thank you, Paul. You are so welcome. Everybody, we will chat with you on next week. And remember, the featured voice, lend them your ears because they deserve to be heard. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again, everyone, so much for joining us for this week's episode of The Featured Voice. Be sure to tune in next week to meet our featured voice guest, Karen White. For more information about the audio flow or the featured voice, visit us online at www.theaudioflow.com. Until next week, remember, lend them your ears because they definitely deserve to be heard.